Math 70, Section 6.2, factoring trinomials that are quadratic, meaning the highest degree is a 2 and the leading coefficient is a 1. These are called quadratic trinomials. What you're going to notice in these problems is that the leading coefficient is a 1, and most of them are x squared, I should say, not all of them. But in this first part, they're going to be quadratic, meaning it's to the second power. So how do you factor the very first problem? So x squared plus 7x plus 12. Okay, this is going to be, unless it's prime, and prime is going to occur in very, very few instances. Prime means that it's not factorable. But you're going to look at this problem and always check to see if there's anything that can come, if there's a GCF out of all three of these, and there's nothing common, okay? So now, in the first place, you're going to say what times what gives you x squared, which is x times x. In the second place, you're going to ask yourself, what two products multiply to give you a positive 12, but add to be a positive 7? So what two numbers multiply to give you 12? So it'd be 2 and 6, 3 and 4, 1, 12. These are our choices. So it's these two right here because these two add up to be 7x. So it's a plus 3 plus 4. And now you can check it by foiling. X times x is x squared. X times 4 is 4x. Plus 3x is 7x. And 3 times 4 is 12. So these are the products or the factors of this trinomial. Okay. Next one. We are going to do is factoring p squared minus 11p plus 24. So again, always look to see if there's anything that can be pulled out, and there can't be. So because there's a 1 in front of p squared, p times p is p squared. Now ask yourself, what two numbers multiply to give you 24, but they have to add to be negative 11? So the two numbers that multiply to give you a 24 have to either both be positive or both be negative. I want them negative because I want them to add to be negative 11p, and that would be negative 3 and negative 8. So the reason is because these two multiply to give you 24, these two add to be negative 11. And if you FOIL it out, you'll see that it's correct. Okay. Next one, example 3. Okay, now this one, z squared plus 3z minus 28. I need to know, first of all, z times z is z squared. What two numbers multiply to give me a negative 28? So one has to be positive, one has to be negative. That's the only way to get a negative. But I want them to add to be a positive 3. So we've got 2 and 14, 7, 4, and 7, and that's it. It's 4 times 7 is 28. If we make the 7 a positive and the 4 a negative, that's our two factors. Because these two multiply to give you negative 28, but they add to be 3. Now, if I would have put the negative with the 7 and the positive with the 4, that would give me a negative 3z. That won't work. So be careful with your terms. Now, it's okay if you have z plus 7, if you put plus 7 first and then z minus 4, but it has to be these two products. Nothing else will work. Number 4. So what two numbers multiply to give you negative 18 but add to be negative 7? So that looks like negative 9 and positive 2. Negative 9 times 2 is negative 18, but these two add to be negative 7. Okay, next one. Number 5 is an example of what we call prime. The reason it is prime is because I don't know two numbers that multiply to give me 12, but add to be 10. So there's no factors, because I could try 1 and 12. That adds to be 11. I could try 2 and 6. That gives me 8. I can try 3 and 4. That gives me 12, but adds to be 7. That doesn't work. So this one we call prime, meaning it's not factorable. What happens when we have a variable in the middle? So 1 at the end, you're going to treat it just exactly the same. So we've got what times what is p squared? Obviously p times p. We also have a q squared here, so we're definitely going to have a q and a q. So now what times what is negative 21, but adds to be 4? And that would be negative 3 and positive 7. So these two multiply to give you negative 21, but these two add to be a positive 4. And if you FOIL it, you'll see that you get 4PQ in the middle. Example 7, you'll notice, is not written in standard form. Standard form, you have to have the highest exponent, which is w squared, make it in the first spot. This is standard form. So your problem should be rewritten as w squared. Always, it has to be in descending order. And then do the problem. So w, 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, but it adds to be a positive 2. So it's w plus 4, w plus 2. Okay. Number 8. Number 8. When you look at number 8, you should immediately notice there's something that can come out. So you can start to layer different types of factoring. So for this one, you should notice a 3u can come out of all of this. So if I took out a 3u, I'm left with u squared minus 7u minus 30. Okay, and then ask yourself, now you can break this, what's inside here, into two parentheses. U times u is u squared. And then what times what is negative 30, but adds to be negative 7. So that would be negative 10 and positive 3. You might have to do a little bit of thinking, but these two numbers multiply to give you negative 30, but they add to be negative 7. So that is factored completely. And I believe the last problem, this one has a negative out in front. Always pull out a negative. If you have any negative, pull it out first. So I'm going to take out a negative 1 here. I'm left with w squared plus 5w minus 24. So now what you want to do is say what times what? Well, let's do w's. W times w is w squared. What times what is negative 24, but adds to be 5, and that would be negative 8 and positive 3. Sorry, wrong way. Positive 8 and negative 3. So it's negative 1, positive 8, and negative 3, because we want it to be multiplied to give you negative 24. We want to add to be positive 5. That ends section 6.2.